I watched every free moment I had, and day and night.
You're less likely to be able to focus, have longer periods of attention and concentration.
Between the age of 18 and 25 reported feeling anxious or depressed.
People can't afford to buy a house at today's price.
500,000 girls in the US are on OnlyFans.
I fart in jars.
What is true happiness? If you ask the older generations, you might find a quite simple answer. For decades, society prompted a linear life path. Go to school, get a stable job, buy a house, start a family, and work towards a comfortable retirement. But what happens if the cycle is broken? We have a school system that is failing us.
So the whole educational system in and of itself is a scam.
A housing market going through the roof.
People can't afford to buy a house at today's price.
And forcing you to be a slave to a bank and also your employer, as you need to hold on that job like on dear life so that the bank doesn't take your house. On the other hand, social media, though it connects us globally, it's slowly erasing our ability to empathize with one another. This is followed by things like loneliness and depression, which are at an all-time high.
What if the biggest AI threat of all is to human relationships?
But don't worry, there is always an AI partner just around the corner, so you can put your Apple Vision and live in your little safe bubble. And it simply seems that there is no end goal for Gen Z.
Adolescents in Wisconsin are reporting increasing thoughts of suicide and feelings of depression and anxiety.
Apparently, Gen Z is like aging really rapidly.
I don't want to be alone.
Every generation had its defining traits, from baby boomers who shaped the post-war prosperity to the Generation X who rebelled against the system, and millennials came of age during the internet revolution. But Gen Z had internet access from day one, and what millennials thought as an extension to their life was a necessity for Gen Z. They're a generation born in a dot-com bubble burst and were growing up in the housing crisis of 2008, which followed by a pandemic, and now it's surrounded by wars all around. Economic crises have surrounded them since they were born basically. To make matters worse, tech companies are accelerating the rise of automations, so despite a growing global population, jobs are disappearing faster than ever, and it sometimes really feels like we're heading to a dystopian future.
Now, robots could only replace part of a human job, enough to make coffee or an omelet. But this is Digit, a robot its makers say is ready to do what human warehouse workers do.
And here I need to add a quote from my father which always made me so laugh when I was little. He said to me, "What your grandfather and I built in our prime years will be a financial burden to you if you decide to pay someone only to paint the walls around you." And this hits quite hard, as the only way to build a home in this age is to be a slave to a bank for 40 or 50 years.
The borrower is slave to the lender, voluntarily signing up to give our lives away.
The dream of home ownership is slipping further out of reach due to rising house prices, stagnant wages and student debt. But why is this important at all? Well, this would lead that Generation Z feels quite trapped and disillusioned.
Between the age of 18 and 25 reported feeling anxious or depressed last June and July, with a third saying they had an unmet need for therapy or counseling.
Rent would also continue to increase while wages remain stagnant. This means that many young adults can't afford to move out of their parents' home, leading to a delay in achieving independence and creating a family. Even for those who do find jobs, wages often have not kept up with the inflation, making it nearly impossible to save for the future. Basically, the poor is getting poorer while the rich is getting richer.
Sorry to break it to you, but your dollar just isn't stretching as far as it used to. According to the Bureau of Labor Statistics, overall inflation is at 7.9%. But some sectors are seeing prices jump much higher than that, and some sectors aren't seeing much of a change at all.
Faced with these challenges, Gen Z simply lost faith in the traditional systems like housing, education and employment that were supposed to guide them to success and happiness. This is a stark contrast to the previous generations. Because of this broken path, it heavily affected how Gen Z is looking at the future, but also the present. Most feel simply hopeless.
You know what? My life is miserable. I hate my life. I hate it. I am depressed and miserable. I don't sleep. I eat like shit. I have no friends, no social life, and I'm miserable. There it is.
And what will you do when society promises no longer hold the true? It becomes difficult for individuals to find purpose or direction in life. This leads to feelings of isolation and deep-rooted sense of being left behind. That's why some consider Gen Z as a generation that gave up. So the only way to escape this harsh reality in their eyes is to look at their phones.
And in 2022, 95% of American teens have a smartphone and use them on average up to 9 hours per day.
The worst part is that their online persona became so important that I do feel they care more how they are perceived online than in real life.
Lock them doors and turn the lights down low.
I don't know whether you know, but I'm pretty famous. Yeah, 2,000 followers on Instagram. Keep that between us, sweetheart. Alright? Oh, jeez, who's this boy?
Social media platforms are fueling collective narcissism, with users competing for likes, followers, and most importantly, validation. This has created a distorted sense of self-worth, where individuals often measure their value based upon how they appear online rather than who they truly are. I like to mention here the rise of apps like Tinder and OnlyFans.
500,000 women in the United States between 18 and 24 are creators on OnlyFans. So that's literally 500,000 girls in the US are on OnlyFans. Only 3 out of every 100 women you meet between 18 and 24 are signed up to create content on OnlyFans. Isn't that nuts?
Which is just sad at the end of the day. But what Gen Z didn't foresee is that the internet is a blade with 2 sharp edges. And when you really think about it, how could it be otherwise? And a major thing that reshaped our world and gave even more power to their problems was the pandemic, further worsening their issues, isolating Gen Z from friends, disrupting schools and job opportunities, resulting in high amounts of stress. Despite being the most connected generation digitally, Gen Z is also for the fact the loneliest. Face-to-face interaction have been largely replaced by online communities, and many young people find themselves isolated from genuine human connection. The irony is, while they are surrounded by online friends, they do feel often completely alone. This would go even deeper, as normal dating is replaced by browsing dating sites to find the perfect match, which are again just carefully crafted personas to appear mostly something they are not. Or how more and more young girls decide to completely sell out and joining on sites like OnlyFans. But if this is something immoral or not, I don't want to get into.
For me, the real money is in the jars.
Jars?
Little happy jars. I specialize in...
Oh, like an Etsy craft?
I fart in jars. I fart in jars.
There is also a way how to avoid all of this, and this is simply to have an AI partner tailored to your wishes.
And it's the first chatbot app that lets you talk to your AI girlfriend like a real human.
Gen Z often struggles to complete tasks, with many unable to watch a video or read a book without constantly reaching for their phones. Studies shows that Gen Z spends around 7 hours per day on their screens. But more alarming is the impact this have on their attention spans. Research suggests that Gen Z's average attention span is now just 8 seconds, the shortest of any generation before them.
You're less likely to be able to focus, have longer periods of attention and concentration, reading seems boring, even watching a movie, they say.
This constant overstimulation is leading to a phenomenon described as brain rot, where the brain is so overwhelmed that it can no longer process or retain information effectively.
I started with a couple of videos, then I started watching more and more. I watched every free moment I had, and day and night.
We definitely will look at brain content in another video, I promise you that. And if things like TikToks are psyops that are trying to give us autism and ADHD is also another interesting question. But if you didn't know what brain rot is, a simple explanation is that this is a type of content featured on every social media out there, which is specially designed to keep you addicted. Constant exposure to quick-hitting dopamine-inducing content from TikTok or Instagram is thought to rewire their brains to crave instant gratification. But now when you really think about it, despite all the things that are happening around Gen Z, social medias aren't helping. Despite all the benefits we gain from technology, Gen Z is facing one of the biggest crises ever, and that's mental health. Coincidence? While this generation is more open about mental health than ever before, they are also experiencing record high levels of anxiety, depression and loneliness. And what is the only way to cope with this bleak reality? More and more people will simply give up. They would sit down for short-term pleasure and will not think about the future at all, binge-watching shows, endlessly scrolling to social media or playing video games for hours with no end. These activities provide a temporary escape but worsen their feelings of isolation and depression in the long term. Obviously this was an oversimplification of serious and complex themes, but I do feel that the problems are quite obvious. So is this stereotypical view of Gen Z one of a failed generation? And is there a bright future for them but also for the other generations? They inherited a world in turmoil, rising debts, an uncertain future and a digital landscape that can be overwhelming. Here is the thing. Let's be real, every generation has its own unique struggles. I mean, despite baby boomers are made fun online how houses would cost $10,000, they still needed to rebuild the whole society after some things happened in the 1940s. On the other hand, Gen Z started to explore alternative ways of living and working. Some are pursuing entrepreneurship, digital nomadism, or living off-grid as a means to escape the traditional structures that have failed them. The rise of movements like minimalism, van life and remote work are all signs that this generation is seeking a new path that will align with their values and perhaps create a new social norm. The crucial thing is here, they are fully aware of the chaos that is unfolding around them.
Fine. I'm okay with the events that are unfolding currently.
Gen Z may be growing up in a world that feels more chaotic and uncertain than ever before, but they are also using their connectivity to their benefit. Plus, they are more diverse and the most socially conscious generation we have ever seen. But where there is uncertainty, there is also opportunity. And where there is a broken system, perhaps Gen Z will take an extra few steps to repair and rebuild the society we live in. But all other generations also need to help. After all, the future isn't set in stone. It's still being written by Gen Z and by every one of us. Maybe the question isn't if Gen Z is a failed generation, but rather, what will they build in the face of everything that is crumbling around them? It will be definitely a very difficult path forward. They are fighting fights on multiple fronts, from mental health, employment, plus many others. But every generation has their own cross to carry, and we also need to stay together to make this world a better place. Because sometimes the greatest strength comes from those who are told they would fail and choose to rise instead. So as you reach the end of this video, I wanna ask you, do you think that Gen Z is truly lost? Or perhaps Gen Alpha will take the crown? I thank you so much for watching this video. If you want to see more content like this, subscribe to the channel. I have many videos that are quite quirky and weird. I've been Snorky, thanks once again for watching, and until the next deep dive, please stay safe.